Thank you so much for attending my presentation about how to make a bad Pokemon, and first let's establish what we're doing. This past week, while doing research for videos, I found myself getting more and more frustrated with designs that are so close to being good but lack the tools necessary to succeed. Today I want to go over what ends up dooming these Pokemon to irrelevance, but just saying just make everything bad isn't very interesting, so instead I'm going to go over specific archetypes and what hurts their viability especially hard. These Pokemon are going to be clearly defined to fit this role and blatantly don't get there. Plus, where I can make the failure even more infuriating, I'm going to, just for fun. Anyways, with that out of the way, let's get started. The main goal of a sweeper is pretty obvious. You want to set up and get through as much of an opponent's team as possible, ideally winning the game on the spot. However, for this to go right, there's a couple things you'd really like to have. If we were trying to make a bad sweeper, the first thing I'd do is give it a poor stab combination. Sweepers need to hit a lot of stuff really hard, and if there's several types you aren't able to, things look bad. A great example of this is bug poison, notably whiffing against steel and poison types. We can take this to the next level by also ensuring it gets very little coverage. This is a huge reason why seemingly fine sweepers like Volcarona and Espathra got banned in Gen 9. They have Terra and thus coverage. But what's even more important than coverage? The ability to set up in the first place. Thus we're going to give our creation really bad bulk. Taking a hit, even a neutral one, will be very difficult, and we desperately need that time to boost. The best real counterpart I could find are low tier Quiver Dance users. Sure, they have some traits that seem very good. Quiver Dance especially is fucking awesome, boosting special attack, special defense, and speed by one stage each. Beautifly notably fits every single one of these traits. It was supposed to be a decent sweeping threat, but is let down by its bug flying typing, no goddamn moves, and less bulk than Gloom. Sure, there was potential, but it was completely wasted. Making a bad wall is also pretty simple. The traits these Pokemon share are really high defenses, seeming tough in theory to take out. However, there's a few things we can do to make this easy. First, with typing, we actually have a few paths to go down. The more weaknesses they have, ideally to common offensive types, the better. A great example is Rock having 5. Few resistances is terrible. Look at bulky ice types who are almost universally awful. Being weak to U-turn is also detrimental as one of the best pivot options in the game. Taking a ton of free damage every time the opponent fucking switches is awful to say the least. Something that worked especially well between Gens 4 through 7 was a rock weakness, as stealth rocks hit them hard on switch-in. However, with Galar's introduction of heavy-duty boots, this is admittedly less horrible to deal with. For move pool, there's one thing we really want to make sure of: no reliable recovery. Sure, you can have stuff like Drain Punch, but Synthesis, Soft-Boiled, in your fucking dreams. This turns an impenetrable wall into a waste of time, and if you make sure it isn't making a large impact elsewhere, like Ting-Lu does with earthquakes and hazards, you have yourself an awful wall. Wo-Chien is my personal example here, even though it's not exactly terrible. However, it does fill a lot of these conditions. Its quad weak to U-turn, has only lead seed for recovery, doesn't deal damage, and doesn't set hazards. Wearing it down is very doable for good teams, keeping it out of the high tiers. However, to be fair, bad walls generally aren't as terrible as the others. Having a high defense stack can often carry you to at least some success. This last section is about supporters, and I'm gonna be honest, this video started as a personal vendetta against the design of Shiinotic. It could have been so cool, but because of a few glaring flaws, it's never been good. This Pokemon has several strong traits that make it seem strong on the supportive side. Spore is fucking broken, putting the opponent to sleep with 100% accuracy. Strength Sap gives a recovery while lowering the attack of the target. Pollen Puff heals teammates, and with a very strong Grass Fairy typing, it has a lot of defensive prowess while threading powerful Moonblasts. Sure, it has to compete with the Moongus, but this could be a real niche in doubles. Unfortunately, that's not the case at all. First, it has horrible stats. 60 HP is enough to seriously hurt its longevity, but with mediocre numbers elsewhere, it just can't stick around like the other mushroom. Plus, as if that wasn't enough, it has a dogshit set of abilities. Illuminate does literally nothing, Rain Dish is worthless outside of rain teams, and Effect Spore can be a negative. If you give something the wrong status, you might just lose, as it can't be put to sleep anymore. It doesn't have to have Regenerator like a Moongus, just give it something, dear god. This catastrophic fuck up is one of my personal least favorite design choices in Pokemon. Please, Game Freak, buff Shiinotic. Oh yeah, that's how you make a bad supporter, I guess. That was the point of this video. Just make all the other shit bad. I don't know, I didn't plan this far ahead. In conclusion, there's many ways to make Pokemon bad depending on their role. From hampering coverage options on sweepers to giving defensive Pokemon horrible types to fucking up everything like what the fuck. The possibilities are endless. Thank you so much for watching.